Hey guys, so we were live streaming before. There was a little situation. We just fixed it up, and now I'm back. All right. So if you didn't see anything that happened earlier, it's fine. All we did so far was go over the A major scale. So if you're not familiar with the scale, I'm just going to revisit it real quick. We have A. This is our first note. It's on this string here, the low string on the 5th fret, and I like to use my middle finger to do it. Then we're going to use the pinky finger to do the 7th fret. And then we're going to go up to the next string, and we're going to do 4, 5, 7. So 4 with the first finger, and 5, then 7 with the pinky. And then the last 3, we're going to do 4, 6, 7. So 4, 6 with the ring, and then pinky. And that's our A major scale. Okay, so if you're not familiar with this scale, go ahead and practice it. Play it as much as you can, back and forth, going higher and lower. Okay, it's a very vital thing to be able to do with your fingers on the guitar because there's so much stuff that it revolves around. And in fact, that's what we're going to do here today, is talk about everything that revolves around this scale. Okay, so this scale is just one scale of, countless amounts of scales. But just by looking at this one scale, we can use this scale to learn a lot of stuff. Okay, so I don't think I've ever made a video about it, but it's in my book. In my book, I don't, because the book is a children's book, I don't really call it this, but in all the seminars, the live seminars I've done where I talk about this, I call this thing the songwriter's triangle, okay? And it's just 3 chords. And I'm going to go through that real quick before we get into anything else. So the songwriter's triangle is just 3 simple chords. It's G, C, D, okay? Those 3 chords, and anyone who already plays guitar, at least a little bit, has run into these 3 chords. And by running into these 3 chords, you see that there's so many songs that use these 3 chords, or even 2 of these chords. But generally, these 3 chords, and sometimes a 4th chord, which I would always put in the center, if we're going to do like A minor or E minor, would be one of those center chords. And even, yes, the 7th chords do count. I always count those because that's just a variation of that chord. So even if we play a G7, and a D7, I threw a D7 in there, but any one of those variations of those chords, they all count. So like even when we play like the D, the C add 9, and then the G, I still count that as the songwriter's triangle. I call it the songwriter's triangle simply because songwriters use this triangle tremendously in order to write lots of songs. I mean, you can just start naming people like the Beatles or Bruce Springsteen or John Mellencamp. You could think of virtually anyone under the sun that's played guitar has used these chords to write at least one song. Okay, so I'm definitely guilty of using it. I wouldn't say guilty because it's a very successful pattern. But the funny thing is that the songwriter's triangle is not really just these 3 chords, because these are the 3 popular chords on guitar. And the reason why these are the popular ones to use on the guitar is because the guitar is tuned kind of like a G chord, kind of. Some people argue, say it's like an E minor chord, and you're both right. E minor and G major are virtually the same. All right, they just have a different starting position, but the chords themselves are a little different. But the scales are the same, they just have a different starting position. So the G, you can play a G major chord on the guitar if you only hit these 3 strings. If you hit the D, the G, and the B string, you've got yourself a G major. Okay, it's a bit of an inversion, and by inversion I just mean G is not the lowest note. Okay, but basically that's what's happening in the guitar. Also, if you were to play a G major chord and then let go of it, the chord is still playing. So that's kind of like home for the guitar. E minor does the same thing. So it's the same. If you notice, if you listen carefully, watch. So I let go of this E minor chord, and I go grab this G major. It's still playing. So for you guys who have a little trouble switching between chords, that's a little trick you can use to make it sound a little bit more smooth, switching from one chord to the next, the E to the G. Okay, so that's just a little tip for that. But really, the songwriter's triangle, you can take any three of these chords, pick one, start there, and then work your way to the other two in a rhythm, and bang, you got yourself at least one part of a song. So let's say we picked D. We'll start with D, then go to G. So I got a little something going on there. And then I threw like a little suspended version of that D chord in there, just to add a little bit more melody to it. All right, so that's the songwriter's triangle. So you can use that, you can mess around with that, and you can create all kinds of stuff with that really cool triangle. And I'll do another video where I really go in depth into just that little triangle for anybody who finds that the rest of this video is a little bit too hard. Okay, I'll do something just on that and make it really simple. We'll have a lot of fun with that one. But for now, I'm going to go back into this one, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more. There's a little jumbled mess down here from when I started this live stream earlier. But basically, what's happening here is this is our first note of the scale, right? So that's our A note. So we're back to A major. And then the second note, the third note, the fourth, fifth note, the sixth note, the seventh note, and the eighth note. And what's happening is when we use this scale, right, we're using this triangle in a sense. So in a sense, what this triangle is really not a G, C, D, but really a 1, 4, 5 triangle. Okay, it's really that more so than GCD. So when we play it GCD, it's because it's open chords. They're usually pretty easy to play. But if we think of it as a 1, 4, 5 progression instead of GC, now we've opened up the entirety of the guitar to ourselves. So I'm going to circle on this scale the 1, 4, 5 notes in the scale so that you see where our notes are for the chords. So here's our 1, okay, here's our 4, and here's our 5. Okay, so look at this little pattern here. I'm going to show it to you on the guitar. So we're playing 5, 5th fret, 7th fret, and then, I'm sorry, 5th fret, 5th fret, and then the 7th fret. And those are our 3 notes to really focus on. So if we're using those 3 to create this triangle here, what's happening is that we're really just going 5th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. But now we're just playing these bar chords instead. I went a little out of tune. A lot out of tune. Sorry. Okay, so it sounds a little bit better. But now the idea is that we're playing this A major, a D major, and then an E major. Okay, so those are the three chords that we have. And if you listen to that again, I know you're hearing something familiar. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds like something you've heard before, something familiar, but you can't quite put your finger on it. What is that? What am I playing there? Well, what I'm playing is, it could be any number of songs out there. This could be Twist and Shout. It could be Wild Thing. It could be Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. There's just so many songs that are written using this triangle, right? The 1-4-5 chord progression. Now, you talk to these old timers who've been playing guitar and they play blues. This is no secret to them. This is not a surprise. It's not a shock. And they're like, oh, yeah, the 1-4-5 progression. That's like every blues progression. You know, you got the guy who's playing the 4, 1, 5, 4, 1. And then maybe add a little something in there to get that little melody. But yeah, that's basically what they're doing. The 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1. Okay, so that essentially what these guys are doing is just doing 5, 5, 7 if they're playing an A major. So great, you have that down. That's simple. That's easy to understand. But that doesn't solve the problem of how do guys do stuff like this. We're playing this A major chord here. And there's some minor chords in there. Where'd they come from? So remember, we're only focused right now on just these 3 notes of the scale. And those 3 notes of the scale, when you spread them out into chords, what happens is these are the 3 major chords of the scale. Okay? So you get a major, major, and major. But there's 3 minor chords in this as well. So what happens here is I'm going to box them in for you here. So we have this one is a minor, okay? This is also a minor, and that one's a minor as well, okay? So, oops, sorry about that. This is the minor. I'm sorry. All right. I skipped that one. All right, so that one's, so these 1, 2, 3 chords would be minor chords. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's something different. Okay. Major, major, minor. Okay, so now what's gonna happen here is I know I left this one out. This is something different, which we'll get into a little bit later. But in a better way to understand these 3 minor chords is to show you not the A major scale, but its relative minor scale. Now, the relative minor scale is it's the same exact scale, but it starts at a different note. Instead of starting A, it starts on the 6th note of the scale, okay? So this one's actually wrong. This one's supposed to be not boxed in, all right? So, so our 6th note of the scale is an F sharp, okay? So that means that if we're playing A major, we can also play in F sharp minor. I'm going to try to write this one in green just so it stands out a little bit differently than the major one. Little experiment, see if it works. If it doesn't, then fine, we'll try something else. But okay, so here is the F sharp minor scale. Okay, so we're going to start on 2. All right, how'd that come out? Come out good? Probably not. No, let's try a different one. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, let's try this. Oh. 2. That come out a little bit better? Yeah, maybe a little bit. No, I don't think so. All right, fine. We'll stick with white. So this is our minor scale, D. Let's get rid of all that junk. Okay, 2. That's our first note in this minor scale. Okay, so 2. And then we're going to do 4 and then 5. Okay, so those are the first 3 notes in this minor scale, and that's literally. Okay, so first finger on the 2nd fret, ring finger on 4, and then pinky on 5. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing again here. We're going to go 2, 4, 5. So not a lot more to practice here. It's pretty simple. The pattern's the same on both these strings. 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5. Okay, and then the last 2 notes is 2, 4. So this pattern is a bit easier than the major pattern because it doesn't really change here. All it does is it stops right there. Okay, and then we have the same thing again. We have our 1 here, our 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our 8. Okay. So what's happening here is we still have a 1, 4, 5, right? But here, this time, it's minor. So we have a minor 1, right? Then we have a minor 4 and a minor 5. Okay? So pretty interesting what's happening here, right? Now this one is different. This is that one. This is just like this one. This is, I'm going to make a little frowny face here because it sounds dark. But I'm going to put a little circle here because this is actually called the diminished chord. And the diminished chord has a very dark sound to it. If you listen to this thing, this is the stuff nightmares are made out of. This is stuff like those death metal guys like to use when they write songs. They think of these types of chords or stuff like this, or the guys that write horror film music. This is the kind of chords that they use or the scales that they use, to make those sounds. So now we have that. Now our third is 5. 5. That's our major. So that's our major chord. Okay. And 6, 5, that's another major, right? Remember that? So we go back to here. That's our major chord here. So that's a major. And then here, that's the 5th fret, right? Boom, 5th fret. Okay, so that's also the major chord here. Let me see. Sorry. So this is a major chord. And then back to that as the minor chord. Okay? So that's what we have here for that. Okay, so that's the minor. And now look what happened here. We're playing the same scale. We have a different starting point. So instead of starting on our A, we're starting on the F sharp. So it becomes the F sharp minor scale, okay? So now being the F sharp minor scale, what's happening is that our 1, 4, 5 are converted to minor chords. So we have 2. We can play this minor chord up here on the 2nd fret. I'm going to circle that. So we got that one, right? 4, okay? This is our minor 4. So we can play that as well. And then we have our minor 5th. which is on the 4th fret here. So now look at that pattern. It's virtually the exact same pattern. Boom, 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 that we were doing before. Remember 5, 7, 5, 5, 7. Now we have 2, 2, 4. 2, 2, 4. And very interesting how this pattern came about now. So even if you're just playing in this scale and you know these 3 chords, you say, well, I got this down. Now you can just think about it. All we're doing is we're dropping down, no matter where you're playing at. If you drop down 3 frets, so from here, 1, 2, 3, you now have the 3 minor chords that you need to fill in the gap of just those 3 major chords. So we're playing this A, now we can go to a minor chord. And then there you go. I just played all 6 of those chords. I left this one out, the diminished chord, because that's why. Because it just doesn't, it's not a nice sounding chord. I mean, when you can play it right and make it work, it's really cool, and it can be very versatile, and it can be incredibly useful for all kinds of things. But for this lesson's sake, we're gonna skip over that one. Okay. Now, if you're into all the metal stuff or whatever, that's fine. I'm going to make a video just on those diminished chords and all those kinds of stuff you can use with them, whether if you listen to heavy metal or if you like horror music or you just want to write something scary, maybe for Halloween. Okay, so that'll be that. We'll save that for another time. But just look at what we have here. So we have our 1, 4, 5 for the major scale, and for the minor scale, it's the same thing. So we have these 3 minor chords that create that same triangle. So if we were to convert this one into a minor version, it would be E, A, and B. Okay, so I'll write that down for you too. So if we were to transform this, we would have E, A, and B. Okay, that would be the minor version of this one. So now looking at it, these 3 are minor, these 3 major, and now you can see how people actually smush these together a lot. There's a lot of songs where people do this. But now the thing is this, no matter where you're playing on the guitar, if you know this pattern, you know 6 chords you can use. So if you're playing with some guys and they're playing over here on, like, let's say the 8th fret, and you're like, what? I don't know. I've never studied this. I don't know this. I don't know what scale you're in. I don't even know. But they're playing major chords. We got this chord here. You go, okay. Well, I know I got this. So 8, 8, 10, right? That's our pattern. So you go, okay, those are my 3 major chords. So where would my minor chords be? And you just back it up 3 frets. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Get your. And you got your 3 minor chords as well. So this is really cool and very useful in a scenario where you have no idea what you're supposed to be playing or what chords you're supposed to be using. This is a great songwriting tool as well. That's why I always called it the songwriter's triangle, because you have this triangle, these 3 chords, and 3 chords is really all people really need to make this, to make a song. If you look at, like, some of the biggest hit songs were just 3 chords. Some were 2. Like, I'm trying to think, Born in the USA, that was 2 chords. If I'm wrong, fine. I think there might be a 3rd chord in there somewhere, but as far as I know, it was really just 2 chords, C and G, for the whole song. And the piano or the keyboard kind of really makes up the melody, that and the drum beat, obviously, and of course the lyrics. But the guitar, he's just kind of sitting back, strumming this C and the G chord back and forth a little bit here and there. All right, but you can have a lot of fun with this, and then with these scales, now you can go back and forth on using these scales And like one thing I really like to do when I use the scale, if I'm playing a song in A major, sometimes I'll say, well, let me change the sound up a little bit, and I'll start moving over into the F sharp minor scale. So I'll start doing the relative minor scale and start playing in that, just to give it a different sound. And it works so well, like the average listener wouldn't realize that you did something weird or something strange or something different, right? It's not really that weird, but people wouldn't notice that. But to someone who has a trained ear, they would go, "Oh, wow, look at that! He switched keys." Technically, didn't really switch keys. I just kind of changed the positioning of the where I'm laying the notes down. But other than that, it's a very useful tool, especially if you want to write a song and you're kind of struggling on, well, I got this chord and that chord, but I don't know what other chords would work with this. You could just go back to, okay, what chords am I already playing? If you're playing a few minor chords, you go, okay, well, I got this minor chord here. Let's do this one. So G sharp minor. This F sharp major, you're like, okay, I got that one. So you go, well, what's going on here? What are you doing? Well, just remember, you still have that pattern. So this chord is a minor, and this chord's a major. So you know that this is not your starting point here. So this was probably your starting point, because you're backing it up 2 frets to a major chord. So it's not gonna tie in with these, or like these would, right? Like the way these would, or those. So you know that it's probably this chord right here, or that one. So that would be 4, 4, and 6, right? Those are your minor chords now. Which means all you gotta do is go, okay, so move up 3 frets from here to help you find the 3 major chords you need. 1, 2, 3. And here are your major chords. And there you go. You have something going on here. Now, I know you're going to ask, like, well, what's going on here? I backed up a little bit and I went lower. How do you know to do that? Well, it's very simple. So what's happening in this case, so once you start understanding the notes on the guitar, you can start to see how they relate to one another, right? So we know that this is our starting point here on this 4th fret bar, and we're just playing this G sharp minor chord. And we know if we move up 3 frets, right, we have the major version of this, which happens to be a B. So if we go B and we go up a 4th, we have E, which is the next string. So B to E, and that's E major. So if we go, oh, hey, that's E major. So is that's also E major. So you got to think with, like, okay, sometimes you're playing a chord, you go, what is this chord? And then you find out the name of it is E major, and you go, oh, like this. Now, they do sound a lot different from each other because of the way they're constructed. You have very lower notes on here, and you have very higher notes on this one. So they do sound a little bit different, but you can hear they match. It's not like it's really going anywhere when you switch from one to another. So we know that this is our E, and if we move up 2 frets, that's our 3rd, that's our 5th in our scale. So we know that. So we can think the same way coming here. We go, well, this is an E major. So we move up 2 frets. That is how we got that way. That's how we found that. So we're going, okay. So now you're looking at the guitar in a different light. You're looking at it like, we got this chord here and this chord here, which are also here and here. So we don't have to necessarily play them here. We can experiment with playing them in different places and see what kind of tones we can get. A cool thing that some songwriters like to do is they'll play a chord in one place and then switch the octave they're playing in, and it just it changes the mood, it changes the feel, it does something to it without bringing you out of the key in any way, all right, or without changing the feel that's happening there, like as far as you see how it connects with each other. So you just go, oh, something changed. Doesn't feel like there's something different, but something different happened here. So that's a nice little trick people like to use. So you want to think with that, the idea that whatever you're doing up here can be recreated here, and anything you're doing here can be recreated up here somewhere. Okay, so look at that pattern, and if you find this pattern somewhere else, anywhere else, you can always go, okay, now you can at least find those 6 chords that you can use, the 3 major, the 3 minor chords that you can use to create whatever it is that you want to create. So it's a lot of fun, and that's really what the songwriter's triangle really is. Okay, so I've been talking about this triangle for a long time. I think this is the first video I've ever actually mentioned it in, but I have talked about it in seminars. It's in my book. I have a whole thing about it, and I will do a video just on that for the people who find this might be a little too hard to follow. Maybe there's too much on here for them, which is fine. Don't worry about it. I'll make a video just on the songwriter's triangle, just doing just these 3, and go over that more. But that's our scale. These are the major and the relative minor. It's related chord, the related scale, sorry. And all you're doing is looking for that pattern, and you can piece together those chords. So if you were to take, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, Wild Thing. Okay, so yeah, it's 3 major chords. And you go, okay, I really like that song. You know, I like the concept behind it, but I want to do something like it, but I don't want to rip them off. And you go, well, okay, you know, you can change it up a little bit. Maybe you can go like, you see, and just throw in some minor chords instead of those major chords, and it sounds really good. It's obviously not the same song anymore, and you haven't strayed too far away from that song that you really do like. So you're taking something that influences you, and then you're taking some knowledge that you got from this, and you're using it to create something of your own. All right, so that's going to be it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I know we went through a lot of stuff, and this is the first time I've done a live stream, and I know maybe this side of the board is not as clear, but I'm going to work on that, make sure it comes out a lot easier for you to see next time. And I really appreciate you guys watching this video, and enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so that way you can be, you know, notified of every video that comes out after this. And I really hope you enjoyed that, and let me know what you think about it in the comments.